Hello and good morning, friends. Today I want to talk to you about a question that I received earlier today. So, what happens if a house is built to support 8 people, but you're moving in with more than 8 people? Let's get into it. So here's the deal, right? This house was built in 2001, right? Standard, basic, run-of-the-mill home, right? Nothing crazy, no weird and luxuries or high-end appliances, none of that other stuff, right? So we've got 4 bedrooms. Now, we need to figure out how are septic systems sized? Does the size really matter? Does occupancy rate really matter? And to understand that, we kind of have to go back into the design element of septic tanks, right? So the first thing that we do when we're trying to determine how big to make a tank or an absorption system or just the system in general is we need to figure out how big the house is, right? So our state made it real simple. Bedrooms times 150 gallons of water per day. Simple as that, right? So if you have a 2-bedroom home, now you're dealing with 300 gallons of water per day. If you have a 4-bedroom home, you're dealing with 600 gallons of water per day, right? So again, remember, 150 per bedroom, so 4 bedrooms times 150, 600 gallons, right? So that's going to be our design flow, our peak flow of water that will be going from the house to the septic tank to the absorption system, right? So now we know our peak flow. Next, we need to determine the size of the tank. So we usually will use a 2x multiplier for that, right? So if you have 600 gallons of flow per day times 2, you need to have 1,200 gallons of capacity. In our area, generally these tanks are 750, 1,000, 1,500. Sometimes you'll get some 1250s in there, but you'll usually see the most common are 1,000 or 1,500 gallons. So in this particular circumstance, in 2001, the property was already built with a 1,250 gallon tank, right? So it already has that 2x multiplier plus 50 gallons of space inside of that system. Now, this system also had 2 drain fields. These drain fields were designed to accommodate the 600 gallons of flow per day. When you have 9 people moving into this property, you need to be very conscious of how much water you're going to be using and the daily usage, right? So for example, if everybody is using their max output of water, the system will be at a deficit of 25 gallons, right? But it's not going to be that much, and most commonly, most homeowners don't use that much water in a given day, right? So if you think about 150 per bedroom and you got 2 people per bedroom, that means that each individual occupant of that house is going to be using approximately 75 gallons of water per person per day. That's kind of on the high end, right? And they over-engineer these septic systems so that way they will last for a significant amount of time. So at the 600 gallons of water per day, a septic system should last you 30 to 40 years when designed correctly. I would argue that in reality, with normal usage, normal occupancy, most of those systems will last well beyond the 40 years. I still come across systems all the time from the 60s, 70s, and 80s that are working perfect, right? There's no problems to them. You do come across some that they're not working that great. But I also have a bunch of houses that are less than 30 years where they also are having septic issues, right? It just kind of depends on your maintenance, your usage, all that good stuff. The best way to make your septic system last longer, as a little side note, pump the stupid tank, pump it down. Don't try and use these additives and all the other stuff to take care of the tank. Pump the tank. It's the easiest way to do it. It's got way more research to show that that's beneficial for the absorption system than there's any other research out there to show you additives work, right? So, but going back to this, right? So they over-engineer these septic systems so that way they can last for as long as physically possible. And that's because these things are expensive, right? In our area, a brand new septic tank, brand new drain field generally is going to run you roughly around $15,000 to $20,000. Now, if your soil's really bad, sometimes I've seen these get even up into the 60s, 70s, or 80,000s. I had one house that I was inspecting where the house was on the water. It was right over by the bay. And that system was $120,000 to put in. Now, they had water issues, right? They were right next to the bay, so it makes it a little bit more challenging to address the septic system needs. But they can get expensive very quickly, but usually on average $15,000 to $20,000, right? So we know that this system's working. Everything's doing what it's supposed to do, and the concern is that they're going to be overloading the septic. And I want to kind of help to dispel a little bit of this by just basic numbers, right? So if we're thinking about your usage, toilet flushing, wash your hands from time to time, take a shower, you can usually figure out, if you use a bucket and a stopwatch, you can figure out how much water your shower head's discharging. But let's just say it's 2 gallons per minute, just for easy numbers, right? So if we have a shower head that's discharging 2 gallons per minute, a 10-minute shower uses 20 gallons of water. So if you think about your normal usage as a average human being, you're gonna shower a day, use the toilet a couple times, you'll wash your hands several times, you might cook dinner at home, you might eat out, who knows? You live your life, but you're only gonna use a few gallons of each of those, right? So we got 20 gallons for the shower, we'll just round up to 6 gallons for the toilet, and we'll round up to 10 gallons total for washing your hands in there, all right? So now you're at 30 gallons. But remember, the estimated daily use of your household is 75 gallons of water per person, right? So we're already at 30, and we've already showered, used the bathroom for the entire day, not including if we had to go to work, and we washed our hands. All right, well, you might be saying, well, hey, what about laundry? All right, well, we'll throw some laundry in there, right? Maybe you're incredibly messy, and you're doing laundry 2-3 times a week, right? Or maybe you have a kid. If you have toddlers, right? I've seen it. They go through a lot of clothes. So let's just say that you're washing maybe 3 times a week. And we'll just say that just for easy numbers rounds up to, 90 gallons per week. Okay. Or we'll just round up to 70 gallons of water per week just for easy numbers. That's an additional 10 gallons per day. So now we're at 40 gallons. We're still 35 gallons short of what would be your daily, every single day usage. So you're 30 gallons short per person, and you've already done all that other stuff. So what else could you possibly do? Well, maybe you do some dishes. Maybe you want to, consider running an extra long shower. There are ways to increase it, but in practice, you're more likely to be closer to 40 or 50 gallons of water use per day, all right? So we've already calculated that our daily use is estimated at 600 gallons of water per day. We've got 9 people moving in. We could just, for sake of argument, bump it up to 10 people, right? So if we've got estimated use of 600 gallons of water per day, we're gonna increase our occupancy to 10, and we're only using 40 or 50 gallons per person per day. That leaves us with 400 to 500 gallons of flow per day from that household. So they should still be well below the design spec of this system, and they should still have plenty of space of usage for them to do whatever they want. Maybe you have somebody who wants to take extra long showers. How often are they going to do that? Maybe they do it every day, but if you have one person who does that, maybe you have 2 or 3 other people who don't. And so their water use will balance itself out, right? So you're not going to have to worry about every single person doing the exact same thing all the time. Now, if you are doing that on the regular, you might have to have a little bit more of concerns with your well pump, right? You might be risking running that well dry or having issues with your water, but that's a whole different conversation for a different day. Today, we're talking about overloading the septic by having maybe too many people. Now, we know that our flow rate is fine, but we still need to kind of figure out, what happens as far as maintenance goes and damage to the drain fields. So if you have more people in the home, you're going to be producing more solids. So the simple, easy answer is just pump the tank more often, right? If you're pumping it more often, you're going to prevent a lot of the solids and debris to build up and potentially risk going into the drain fields and causing problems. So as long as you're pumping it, and we just did the math, right? So you can do the math yourself. If you're very anxious about it, you can do it yourself, and you can figure out whether or not that's going to be your issue. But so if you pump it down, you do the math, you see what you're working with, and then from there, you can try and figure out, okay, well, what other contributing factors might I run into, right? Maybe you have a downspout that's right over top the drain field, or maybe you have a downspout right over top the septic. Maybe your riser's not watertight. Those are far more impactful on your septic system because you have rainwater that gets into it every now and again. You got snow melt if you're in a northern climate. Maybe if you're in the south, not as much. But if you have snow melt, all that water could potentially go into your septic system and cause potential issues. So you have to run into some problem, or you have to run into some thought into this, right? Otherwise you can run into some problems. So if you're really, really anxious about the size of your tank in relation to the amount of people that are going to be occupying your house, I would recommend take a sheet of paper and just start doing some math. Figure out how much water you use in a day. Write down, okay, I use the bathroom 3 times a day. Okay, well, how much water does your toilet use? Maybe it's a gallon of flush. Maybe it's 2 gallons of flush. Who knows how much it is? Maybe it's low flow. Maybe you're getting half a gallon of flush. Who knows what that toilet's doing, but you know you do it 3 times. You can do the math. Then you can say, okay, well, I wash my hands for 30 seconds. Well, figure out how much water that sink discharges over the course of a minute, and you can figure out how much gallons you used. After that, you do all that math, you'll be able to figure out, okay, I use this amount of water. The max amount of water I'm able to use is over here. As long as your number's less than the one that's over here, you'll be okay, you'll be fine. Where you do run into problems is if your number's higher than this one, right? So let's just game this out, right? Say we have a 2-bedroom house. We have a 2-bedroom house where the design flow for this system is gonna be 300 gallons of water. So if we have 9 people moving into a 2-bedroom house, which would be insane, but maybe, who knows? If you have 9 people moving into a 2-bedroom house, you will be way more damage to that septic system because it will be well over the design spec, and then you'll start to run into some problems, right? I hope this was useful. If you've ever had this situation come up, let me know below. Have you ever had to purchase a home where the people that you were moving in with were more than what this house was designed to accommodate? It happens. People do things all over the place. So let me know below. I hope that you found this useful and interesting. Leave those comments. If you enjoy content like this, I have more videos posted every day on the World of Well and Septic. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. Until next time, guys.